It's not worth getting married in the first place unless you need it for tax purposes. Or you haven't written a good will and you need to make sure that your partner and your children are all accounted for. Otherwise, why get married?
Have you been married?
No, absolutely not. Why would I? All my friends have been divorced. Why on earth would I get married?
Well, that's what it said. It's half of them are ending in divorce.
And the other half are unhappy, so why get married?
See, the thing is, that's a controversial take because a lot of women will say, yeah, I want to get married. But men are like, I don't know. So why is it that a lot of women want to get married then?
Maybe they want the big day. Maybe they want the security. And it's more about security, sort of being officially tied to someone. Because we know what men are like.
I mean, we know what people are like.
Well, yes, but I think men are more philanderers than possibly women because women have the work, the children, the house to look after. The men have their jobs and off they go and they've got to work extra late tonight.
So your advice would be for people to not get married?
Absolutely.
It's like, where are you ladies from?
I live in Denmark. I live in the UK. I'm basically from Romania.
What are you ladies doing for a living?
I'm a musician. I play in a symphonic orchestra. I play the violin. I'm a registered nurse.
You ladies married?
No, I'm divorced. I never get married. I'm happily single and I'll stay like this.
In your perspective, what's the meaning of marriage?
The way I see it today is that you should have children and have a family just to convince yourself that maybe you shouldn't have. You should just have children with no marriage.
Hey, work on yourself. It's better to invest in yourself, in your own mind, in your spirit, in your energy. So raise up your vibration. It's better than getting married.
Do you think like who needs marriage more, men or women?
Men, definitely. Men are not capable of being singles.
So what is the secret of being happily single?
Oh, but that's the most wonderful thing because the moment you're single, you have time for reflection about yourself. You know, the happiest people in the world are single women and married men.
It's better to enjoy a partner, but not to get married. So just, enjoying going out on date. Don't lose yourself.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Unfiltered For You Stories. So it's another day. We are going to look at TikTok clips that have been making rounds where women say they are done with marriage. This is really interesting because what has happened? What is going on? Men say they don't want to get married, and then women are also saying they are done with marriage. So what's really going on? And that is just not one post, not two, but it's a whole wave of women saying, I don't want to get married. I'm happier on my own. I think some people just think it's a trend. Others say it's part of a bigger shift. And women realizing that they don't need marriage to feel complete. So we are going to watch some of these TikToks together, see what they are really saying, and talk about why this message is resonating with so many people. So grab your popcorn, grab your snack, grab your coffee, and let's get into this. Don't forget to like, share, and put your opinions in the comment section.
There are an increasingly large number of women who are just choosing not to get married and are choosing to stay single. There's a mating crisis going on, and that women who are becoming increasingly college educated and, getting access to resources of their own, that they do continue to exhibit an increased preference for partners with resources. Women are what we call hypergamous, right? Which means that we like to mate up in terms of achievement and educational attainment. And when you have a populace like we do in the US of women who are now on average more educated than men, it makes it more difficult to find a suitable partner. If you're a woman with an advanced degree and you want somebody who has at least as much education for you, that's going to lead to a more narrow pool of mates. And in fact, what we see is that there are an increasingly large number of women who are just choosing not to get married and are choosing to stay single. And in fact, there's a wonderful book called All the Single Ladies that is about this very phenomenon. And women are increasingly choosing to opt out of long-term mating if they're not able to find the relationship that they want.
I know the TikTok sheikhs are going to come for my neck, but I don't really believe in marriage. Not in modern day, at least, because I would say that the majority of the time it doesn't work out. And even when it doesn't end in divorce, it ends in absolutely hating and resenting each other towards the end of life. And the reality is that in most marriages, women get the short end of the stick. Like, women are the ones who have to sacrifice their careers, their health, their well-being to take care of their husband and the children. And in modern days, a lot of women are still working at the same time as doing all of that other stuff that has always been an obligation for women. I'm not like a psychopath, so there's still a part of me that like craves it. Like, I yearn for it, but logically I just don't really care for it because I don't think that it's gonna benefit me. Honestly, I feel like it's actually going to stunt my growth. It's going to stunt my career. It's just going to stunt me in so many ways, and I'm going to grow to hate that person. I didn't have to be in a marriage to have observed that in literally hundreds of marriages of the people around me. There's also a part of me that's just skeptical about the idea of being with one person for the rest of your life. And because so many people go into marriages with such high expectations, like they think it's going to significantly improve their lives, and then they're like quickly humbled within the first few years of marriage, I just feel like that actually sets people up for even more pain and heartbreak. Because society and just like our families have raised us to glorify marriage or to see it as like our end all be all purpose in life. And when you are disappointed by that, you just, it leaves you lost and broken and confused. So yes, there's still a part of me that like yearns for it. I do feel lonely every once in a while, but I know that I'm better off alone. And I'm more so in the mindset of like, if it happens, it happens, but it'd have to be like the most ideal situations. Otherwise, I just don't think that it's worth the time and effort and pain. Not to mention, in marriage, a lot of women's needs and their, how can I say this without pissing people off? Their desires are very rarely met. There's that aspect of it that actually leaves women feeling very frustrated. And then when they're not satisfied in their marriages, a lot of times the men will then go seek out other women because they can't satisfy their wife. Like, I just can't, why would I put myself through that? I've seen far too many marriages that have failed, or if they haven't entirely fallen apart, they leave, at least the woman for sure, just feeling so broken and regretful of even getting into the marriage in the first place. Like, most of our moms and aunts and everybody, they're miserable in their marriages and they regret marrying the men that they married. So part of it is also just like the fact that they didn't choose well, but like, that's the reality for most women.
Reasons why I don't want to get married, I actually made a list because I have ADHD and I will go around the world before I get to the point. I'm kind of doing that right now. So starting with number one, studies have shown that single childless women live longer, and I do believe that. I also don't like the idea of sharing my space with someone in the long-term sense. That really freaks me the fuck out. It's actually really disgusting and ghetto. Unless I'm married rich or into land or into, something tangible, I literally wouldn't benefit from it. I don't want kids, and because I don't want kids, I kind of don't really see the point in getting married, because marriage mostly seems like a construct to raise your children in, right? And that's just how I view things. I don't want to be emotionally responsible for someone long term. I feel like marriage would be a backup plan for me. I saw someone say that in a marriage, you're going to work 10 times harder for that life of leisure, married to, a provider man, blase, versus just doing it yourself and, working hard and getting your education and doing what you need to do to make sure you can provide the life that you want for yourself. Being the rich man versus marrying the rich man. Being the hypergamous woman that I am, there is always some sort of a benefit for me when it comes to having a man in my life. That's where I draw the line. I'm not looking for anything that goes further than that. I'm not looking for the commitment of marriage. And in order to be in my presence, there are some things that are non-negotiables, and that's just what it is. Those are just some of my many reasons. I don't judge anyone for what they desire. If a person wants to get married or have kids, that's to each their own.
Many women like myself are increasingly focusing on their careers, education and travel. And if I'm being honest with you, it's a result of not being able to find a suitable lifetime partner. Well, that's the case for me anyway. After finally coming to terms that I wasn't going to be married and I wasn't going to have children in my 20s, I kind of fell into prioritizing my career and education. But what I didn't expect was that during this time, for my desire for marriage to become lesser and lesser. Now, some of you may be thinking it's the devil that's playing games with your mind, and there's no way I'm disputing that, so please pray for me. But it's definitely a result of seeing people around me settle and still being unhappy, and seeing a lot of amazing women in their late 30s and even 40s still waiting for the one. And now I find myself questioning, maybe I'm meant to be like Paul in the Bible. Maybe my heart has stopped yearning for marriage, not out of contentment, but because I'm slightly giving up. And I know I'm not the only one that's been thinking this way, especially for my Christian girlies. It feels like at times there's a better chance of winning the Euro Millions than finding a godly man whose beliefs, life goals and values align with yours. And all that discouragement trying to find that person is enough for anybody to throw in the towel and be put off marriage completely. However, the advice I'm actively given and what I'll share with you is to work on strengthening your faith. I have let fear overshadow my trust in God, and I have forgotten that God is not bound by my timelines. I wish I had all the answers sometimes, but I'll be a liar if I said I wasn't continuously battling these thoughts. I'm always trying to remind myself that God's plan is better than anything I could ever come up with. And I make this video to say you are not alone. See you. We in this struggle together, sis.
It's been said before, but I'll say it again. Marriage isn't really good for women. Women don't benefit from being married to men. The comment section on this video is full of women who say this, happily married here, and I say this without weirdness, but if he dies first, and he knows this, LOL, I will not do it again. So many of the comments came from married women who claim to be happily married, who say they would never choose to live with a man again. And I think this speaks volumes about the dynamics that exist in our culture overall, right? When men get married, they expect their wife to take care of them, to cook for them, to clean for them, to take care of their children, to have children for them, and they go off and work. But in today's world, these women are also working. And so not only are they working full-time, but they are also expected to care for the home and the children and do exponentially more work in the home than their partner. And oftentimes these men have been raised without the information or expectation that they'll take care of the home themselves or take care of the kids. And so even when they try to help, they need a list, they need her to tell him what to do, and it's exhausting for women. It's been shown that marriage isn't actually good for women. Women who are single do better than men. Also, having children isn't really good for women, right? We have the wage gap, the motherhood penalty, and the fact that having children can put women at a higher risk of financial troubles in the future, right? Marrying men, living with men, and having children doesn't quote unquote benefit women in the same way it does men, which is why so many women say they would never do it again. And that's also why so many men remarry so fast.
Another huge reason why marriage is on the decline is because of female empowerment and feminism. And we have to talk about that because it's something that, like you had stated earlier, that it's about things being equal. And it's something where if you're a woman and you're successful and you're educated, it's one of those things where why would you necessarily, especially if you don't want children, why would you go down that route? Except for, I believe being, again, a partnership or relationship is something that is healthy for people if it's a good relationship. But I think that more and more women are willing to say, I really don't need a man. And believe that.
So I agree. Like, I think that a big part of it is that people are coming in at equal playing fields, basically, which I think as far as feminism goes, they should see that as a good thing, right? Like feminism wants that. Yeah. They want two people to come together equally. I think that where it has almost swayed too far is where women still expect a man to make more than her. Instead, if there's no pay gap, potentially she could be earning more than him.
Well, I think that's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the near future. If you look at universities, they're mostly women now. And on average, people make about $1 million more in their lifetime if they have a college education versus not. And so you're seeing all these educated women who are going to be in careers and doing well for themselves. And then there's all these guys who aren't in school. And yeah, maybe they're in the trades. That's great. But I think that there's also a lot of guys that are just kind of falling through the cracks. So it's going to make it more and more difficult for a woman to find a man that's even earning the same amount as her, let alone higher.
How many married women do you know that have no husband? Meaning that they are married women, they are wives, but they are single mothers, and they are pretty much single women. How many married men you know that are not husbands? Meaning they have wives, but you would never know they have wives because they be acting the most single, or they have children, but their women are functioning as single women because though they ask that woman to be their wife, they never assume the position of being what a husband is. And before you ask God for a husband or for a wife, ask yourself, are you a husband? Are you a wife? Do you actually understand what it means to enter into a covenant like marriage? Because so many people think getting married is about filling in your empty spaces, letting someone complete you, romance, butterflies, flowers, bouquets, happy days, happily ever afters. No. Do you know what happens at altars? Sacrifice. And you know what a sacrifice is? Dying to yourself. Did you know that in marriage, two become one flesh? Meaning when you become one with that man, you join with him and you need to submit to him, allow him to be your head. And any man that you marry, he becomes your head. And if his head is not in Christ, your head won't be in Christ, because now that man is your husband and the two have become one flesh. Before you ask God to get you a husband or to make you a wife, ask yourself, are you ready for the responsibility of that covenant? Because it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. Marriage is meant to reflect the kingdom. Marriage is a covenant. You want to get married because you think it's going to give you security or safety. It's actually going to reveal your insecurities and your lack of safety. You think it's going to fill in your voids. It's actually going to reveal how broken and how empty you actually are. I'm saying all this to say, stop coveting something that you don't fully understand. Instead, ask God, reveal to me if marriage is my ministry. Reveal to me if I'm called to be a wife, if I'm called to be a husband. Because it's not all about romance. It's not all about giddy feelings. It's about doing God's will in the earth. Ask God, is this a ministry you called me to? Because some of y'all been called to the ministry of singleness, and yet you're begging to be a wife. You're begging to get a wife. But are you a husband?
You know, the main reason why I don't want to be married anymore is because the way that I've been able to make my 17-year marriage work all of these years is by compromising myself. Compromising what I think, compromising about what I value, compromise what I want, compromise the type of relationship that I want to have. Everything has been a compromise, but the compromise has been on my part. Me adjusting, changing, doing things differently to please my partner or to make the family as a whole work. And I just know that it's just not the right thing to do anymore. But on the other hand, it's really scary thinking that I'm going to be 52 years old out there living by myself with my kids, trying to make it in this economy. I don't have an education. I never went to school. I didn't have a career or anything like that. There was no plan B. This was always the plan. You know, be married, stay married, raise a family, and just stay together and make it work to the end. I'm taking a huge risk, and sometimes I question whether it's the right thing to do. But I know the reason why I'm questioning is because I'm so used to compromising myself. I'm so used to putting myself last. I'm so used to just making myself disappear so I can be in these roles, wife, mother, whatever, and somehow hopefully make other people happy, and that'll be my life. But that's not the right way to live. I want to find a different way of living. And I have a lot of regret that I've waited so long and I'm doing it now at 52. I don't have youth. I don't have, all of the optimism. I don't have years and years in front of me. I don't really even have the time to kind of wait on it or waste. I mean, I don't have a ton of time. I mean, if I don't do it now, when will I ever do it? When will I ever be comfortable in my own skin? When will I ever feel proud and happy and like myself? When will I ever be in a situation like that again, unless I go out there and try to take it for myself? It's pretty scary, but I have a feeling that it's going to be worth it. I think it's going to be worth it.
So we have heard them, we have heard the ladies, and we have heard the gentleman also sharing some of the reasons as to why women may not want to get married. Yeah, so right there in the first clip, that is a key difference. People still want connection, they still want love, but they don't want the old school version of marriage that limits them. So you hear those ladies that they are not married, they are single and they are happy. Like one was saying, for her, she has never gotten married, but she just goes into relationships and she feels loved. Yeah, just to have a partner, but not like getting into a committed kind of relationship or marriage. They are happy being single and they feel like a single woman is happier than a married woman, just as a married man is more happy than a single man. That's what they are saying. I don't know how far true this is, but I hope it's true. Yeah, when marriage feels like a second job, cooking, cleaning, managing emotions without equal effort from both sides, taking care of children, bearing children. So it's not a surprise that people are saying they would rather stay single than get married. And it's not that women don't want to love. They just don't want to carry that whole relationship by themselves. And also I think that for a long time, women were told that marriage is the finish line. But now people are realizing that it's just an option. And happiness can look different for everyone. There are those who can be happy in a marriage, then there are those who can be happy when they are single. And then also, the fact that more women are independent these days, that also gives them the liberty and a support system whereby you don't need to depend on someone anymore as a woman. You can be independent, you can take care of yourself, you can provide for yourself, unlike before where women used not to go to school and get education. Women used not to be allowed to work, like in some countries. Women were seen as housewives, stay-at-home mothers. But now women go to school, they get jobs, highly paying jobs, and they can take care of themselves. Like they can support themselves without having to depend on a man like before. So this is another thing that is making women to weigh things, look at things and say, now, with marriage also sometimes it's not easy. They're like, when I get into marriage, maybe I'll have to sacrifice part of my life, part of my plans that I would have accomplished if I was single. They opt to stay single. And something good about this whole system now, you can adopt a child if you want to. So the independence of women right now also gives them that upper hand in thinking twice about getting married. I like seeing men responding like this one. He's not defensive, but he's reflective. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about one gender versus the other. It's about both sides learning to show up better for each other and realizing that marriage isn't a mandatory to live a full life. I've been hearing about this really so much, how some people watch their parents, what they went through or what they are going through, parents, relatives, sisters, neighbors, who are married. Of course, watching them go through toxic marriages and deciding that they would rather avoid it altogether instead of getting into it. The rate of domestic violence is also high, and when, for example, you're a child, you grow up in a family or a home where parents are always fighting, where maybe the father is always mistreating the mother. When you're a child and you see that, as you grow up, you begin thinking. You think and you're like, supposing I also end up like the other one. Supposing I end up with a toxic man. Some people just think about all that and they're like, no, I'll not get married. Yeah, that was actually a good mix. Some serious, some funny, but all of them are saying something that is really important. So it feels like people are finally being honest about what they want and what they don't want. And that honesty might actually be the healthiest thing to happen to relationships in a long time. Marriage isn't over. It's just evolving. People want love that feels equal, peaceful, and intentional. And if they don't see that, they are okay walking away. And that is powerful. So what do you think? Put your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell so that you don't miss out on the next one. Take care of yourselves, choose peace, and let's meet in the next video.